I raided my trash can and picked up a lamp kit from my local Lowe's. Using a baking dish, I took a handful of ice and water and dumped it inside. Using my hot glue gun, I squeezed a string of glue directly into the ice water. Because the water is so cold, it'll cause the glue to dry immediately. I repeated this process again and again until I was left with dozens of these wavy glue strands. I cut the top off the soda bottle I rescued from the trash. Then, I used my hot glue gun to put dots of glue around the edge and attached the glue strands. Using my lamp kit, I threaded it through the end of the bottle and screwed an LED light bulb into the other side. Switching it on, I was left with the most unique, whimsical pendant light, and all from hot glue and a soda bottle.
I have this storage container and I'd love to use it for my office supplies, but I really don't want to see what's inside. I'm starting by giving the container a quick sanding so that the surface is a little rougher. To make the outside look a little better, I want to add some clay designs before I do anything else. I always dust my molds with cornstarch before adding the air dry clay so that it releases easily when I'm done. I'm just going to keep adding clay until the mold is slightly overfilled. To remove the excess clay, I'm going to take an old ruler and just run it from the middle of the design to the outside edge. Now it's time to release the clay. Look at that beautiful flower and all those details. For right now, I'm just going to lay the clay where I want it. I've gone ahead and made some more impressions, and I'm going to lay them all out on the side of the container. Now that I've decided where I want the impressions, I'm using some tacky glue to stick them in place. Once they're all glued, I'm just going to leave this to dry overnight. With the clay stuck in place and dry, it's time to paint them. I've chosen a silver spray paint for the first coat. This is going to cover the clear container and provide a really nice background. Now that the silver spray paint is dry, it's time to give the container a beautiful faux stone look. I'm using stone spray. It's a textured spray with different shades of beiges to give the look of stone. The trick with this spray is to do a lot of light coats. Each coat has to dry, and then the next extra coat will help to build up that faux stone. I think this box and the texture are so fun. I love that what's inside is hidden now as well. I hope this has inspired you to give your storage a makeover and give it that faux stone look.
Add a large blob of hot glue onto the middle of a flat drawer pull. Carefully place a real dried flower on top and then gently press down with a wax seal press. Then I placed the whole thing in the freezer for just a few minutes while it hardened, and I took it out after a few minutes and carefully pulled the press off. Next, I used a metallic gold marker to color the edges gold, and then I applied a thin coat of Mod Podge on top of the flower to ensure it was sealed. I repeated the above steps to make another 2 drawer pulls. Just make sure to place the press back in the freezer between each one. You want to make sure that that metal press is nice and cold. When they were dry, I attached them to a mini shoe cabinet that I refinished, and they add the perfect amount of character. What do you think? Would you try making your own flower press drawer pulls with hot glue?
I printed a few images of spring flowers, leaves, and a butterfly. I'm placing those on the table and then adding a layer of parchment paper over the top. Now this is the fun part. I'm just tracing the shapes with hot glue. I want to make sure to create even lines and connect everything. Once these are dry, I can peel them off the parchment paper. The flat part that was on the bottom is what I'll use as the stamp. I want to create a back for the stamps so there's less mess. I'm just going to use a piece of craft foam and attach it to the stamp with hot glue. Then I'm going to trim down the sides so it's easier to hold. Now it's time to get creative. I've laid out the fabric and protected the surface underneath. I'm using craft paint mixed with a little bit of a fabric paint agent. This means it'll hold up in the wash. You can also just use straight fabric paint. I'm going to use these just like regular stamps, dip them in the paint, and then transfer to the fabric. You could also brush the paint onto the stamp with a paintbrush. I've created a pattern of flowers, leaves, and butterflies. Once this is completely dry, I can use it to set a spring table. This was a fun and easy way to create my own stamp.
The next time you want to give your tired old furniture a little refresh, grab your hot glue gun. To start, I grabbed 2 molds that I wanted to use for this project. So I'm going to start with this scroll one right here. I'm going to start at one end of the mold and fill it slowly with the glue. I want to make sure it gets into all of those little pretty details. As the glue starts to dry, I also want to go back and make sure to fill it up so that it's flush with the top of the mold. The first mold is dry now, so I'm going to go ahead and peel it out. This is really easy to do with the molds being so flexible. I can trim off any little strings and overflow now with a little pair of scissors. It's time to start on the little stand now. I'm going to give it 2 coats of a creamy white paint before doing anything else. Now that the paint's done and dry, I'm going to go ahead and add my hot glue scrolls and the circle. Some all-purpose glue on the back of each one will be enough to adhere it to the furniture piece. With all 3 pieces stuck in place, I'm going to paint them using the same paint that I used on the stand. A small brush really helps to get all the paint into those little details. Now that all the painting's done, I want to protect the paint and those hot glue pieces, so I'm going to put a layer of clear, soft wax all over everything. Now it's time to bring out all the little details in those hot glue molds. I'm going to use some dark wax and a small brush to push it into all of those little details. I can use a paper towel to gently wipe off any excess that there might be. I'm going to finish up adding the wax and do a little sanding around the edges just to add some faux age, and I'll be back to show you what it looks like. What a transformation! It was so easy to add such pretty details with some hot glue and a couple of molds. I hope this has inspired you to add some decorations to your furniture and give it a makeover too.
Start off by shaping the hot glue sticks with a box cutter or small knife. Make sure to have a mat down and cut away from yourself to angle the hot glue sticks to a point. To remove the shape parts after you've cut them to a point, simply move the glue stick back and forth and press down with your cutting tool. This is going to cut through the glue stick. You can use glue sticks of various sizes for this craft. And you're also going to need about 6 of these glue sticks of various sizes, or in my case, just 6 of the same size. Try to keep these cut pieces under 1 inch if you're making a small cluster, but you can also make them larger if you're going to be making a larger cluster. Save all of the hot glue scraps as you go because we are going to use them later in this craft. After you have all of your crystals shaped and cut, lightly color them with a permanent marker. Use a stiff paintbrush before they dry to create streaks and also disperse the color. Do this with all pieces. You can use a darker permanent marker on the edges to create more of a realistic look and give it some shadow. Line your small bowl with parchment paper. Put a dot of hot glue in the bottom to keep the paper in place. Put down a small amount of cornstarch if you have any. Fill your bowl with hot glue to create a small dome. As you go, add in hot glue scraps. They will melt in. Wait for the hot glue to cool down and remove the parchment paper. If any of the parchment paper sticks, wet a paper towel to remove it easily, or you can just leave it and paint it over. It's not going to show because it'll be on the bottom. Use your warmed hot glue tip to create texture on one side by tapping the hot glue. Paint both sides with black acrylic paint. Let the paint dry and glue the crystals on. There is no specific way to glue them on, but look up references on how crystal clusters grow and look. Here's the finished crystal cluster. Now, on to the next craft. You will need silicone molds for this craft. Make sure your molds are clean and free of any dust or hair. Fill the molds with hot glue. It is best to paint the hot glue in there. Start off in the middle and slowly branch out to prevent bubbles or spaces. Let the molds cool off. Remove any glue webs and take out your molded pieces. To even out the sides, use your hot glue gun tip to smooth and remelt the glue. Put a base coat of paint onto the shapes. I am using pink since they are hearts. After the base coat is dry, you can write on them, or you can just leave them how they are. Here's the finished hot glue heart. Now, on to the last craft. Lay a sheet of parchment paper down. Create ovals with your hot glue gun. 3 or so should be good. Create dots with the hot glue gun. I made about 20 since they are all shaped a bit differently and I can pick and choose from them. Fill a glass of cold water and squeeze hot glue into it like such. Remove the hot glue cluster from the water. Separate some of the pieces and cut off extra parts of hot glue that you are not going to use. Remove the hot glue ovals after they are fully cooled from the parchment paper. Glue on the line pieces to the oval pieces. Glue 2 to 3 on each oval. Remove the circular pieces from the parchment paper. Top the line pieces with a circular piece. After all the circular pieces are glued down, cut off any extra hot glue that is hanging off. Paint the base green first. Let the base dry and then paint the tops red. As the tops dry, paint the stems white. When the red paint is dry, put dots on the top. You can now take all 3 of these hot glue crafts and decorate with them. I am putting them on my fairy house to add more decorations. I actually made this as another home talk craft, and you can go and see this on my profile. Thank you all for watching. I will see you next time.